Hi, and welcome to the 300 subscriber special. 300 subscribers, that's awesome. Just want to thank you guys so much. I want to thank everybody who's new. I want to thank everybody who's old. Thanks for, sticking around and listening to the stuff that I do. I really appreciate it. So let me tell you a little bit about what's been going on lately. So several productions I've produced and narrated for Chilling Tales for Dark Nights are being played on the Dark Matter Radio Network, which is an internet radio station created by the famed American broadcaster Art Bell. So that's really great exposure for Chilling Tales for Dark Nights and for myself as well. Really happy that that's happening. I worked on a Fight Club monologue. That was really fun. I love that movie, so it was fun to do. So I created a channel trailer. So people who've never seen the channel before, who've never heard of me, can kind of get a gist of what it is that I do. I produced a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights story with my good friend Todd Farrell. He acts as the narrator in a production of Milk and Cookies, which is a great no sleep story. He did a fantastic job. He's got a great, awesome, rich baritone voice, and it was nice to be able to work with a buddy of mine from back home. I produced The Smiling Man, which was a lot of fun. I quite like that story. I did Just 3 Pounds a Month Can Save a Child's Life. That one was a lot of fun because it was a bit of a challenge to try to speak in a British accent the whole time. I'll leave it to you to decide whether I was successful at it, but it was still a lot of fun. I got my first ever fan story submission, which was awesome. It was called The Piper by Katie Belsey. And Katie has done an awesome job. She wrote a really nice story. It's kind of like it's like the Pied Piper, but coming for people's souls, I guess. And it's like a beautiful mixture of like ghost story and fairy tale. And I think she did a really nice job. So thanks very much, Katie. Anybody else who is interested in submitting a story for me to read, or who's found a story that they like me to read, certainly pass that stuff along. I will have a look at it and consider it for the channel. Because I certainly would love to get your input on what you'd like to hear me do. What else did I work on? I worked on, I just released cover of Mad World, which was a cover by Gary Jules of the original Tears for Fears song. I've always loved that song. If you've ever watched the movie Donnie Darko, that's where you would have heard Gary Jules's song. It's an awesome movie. Love the song. Very kind of sad and haunting. So it was really fun to be able to work on that, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Really exciting development for me. I got to be featured on the No Sleep podcast. So I was contacted by David Cummings, the producer of the No Sleep podcast, and he was asking if I wanted to do any narrations or productions for him. And I decided that I'd forward him along my production of Dust by Cameron Suey. So he had a listen, and he really liked it, and it made it onto Season 4, Episode 3 of the No Sleep podcast. So go check it out. And last but not least, I got to collaborate with one of my favorite YouTubers, Manga Minx. So I contacted her through Chilling Tales for Dark Nights to do a production for us, and she graciously accepted, and that became the production You've Known This Your Whole Life. I think she did an amazing job. I hope we get to have her back again. It was a real honor to be able to work with her. Okay, so that's kind of what I've been up to lately. Let's move on to the question and answer section. So I asked you guys at about 250 subscribers whether or not you'd be interested in asking any questions that you'd like me to answer. And I had a really good turnout. Several of you asked several questions at a time, so I'm going to try my best to answer them all. I apologize if I missed any of them. Here we go. So this comes from Babar Mohammed Shireen. I apologize, Babar, if I've mispronounced your name. He's asking, I want to know, what's your favorite musical instrument and your favorite genre of music? My favorite musical instrument is probably the guitar. I'm partial to it because I've been playing it since I was about 10 years old. I also really love the piano and the violin. My favorite genre of music? Tough call. Well, there's a real special place in my heart for 90s alternative. I grew up listening to it, and I've kind of always been stuck in that zone, basically since I was a teenager. There's just some amazing music that came out during that time, and so many great bands that came out and made it big during that time that I love to listen to. I also really like industrial music. Big fan of KMFDM. They've been a long time favorite of mine. I also really love Nine Inch Nails. I'm pretty much in love with anything Trent Reznor does. I like, 80s retro music. I love new wave. I like classical music. I like rock, metal, some hip hop, trance, house, trip hop, acid jazz, breakbeat, jungle, some dubstep. It's dubstep is one of those things that I can take or leave, but there are a couple of standout artists like Savant who they're amazing, and so I'll endure dubstep if I get to listen to guys like that. So if you've ever heard any of my own music, it's pretty obvious I've got a real sweet spot for electronic music. So anyways, short answer, 90s alternative. It's my favorite genre of music. Okay, so Sweetie Man Jr. asks, how do you choose the stories you so skillfully deliver? That's nice of you to say. I often creep the No Sleep subreddit quite a bit. Most of the stories I've done come from there. There's other sites I like to visit, like the Creepypasta Wiki, creepypasta.com, various sites like that. But I tend to feel that the better quality stories are on No Sleep. They speak to me the most, I think. Okay, Sweetie Man Jr. also asks, what equipment do you use? What's your setup? Okay, so this is going to be a long one. Bear with me. So first I have a Shure SM58 microphone. This old girl is about 15 years old. It once belonged to one of my best friend's brothers who was in a hip hop group. It's been dropped on stage, slobbered on, had beer spilt on it, the works. It was going to look into a condenser microphone, but once I replaced the ball and the filter on this thing, it sounded brand new, so I kept it. I really like the warm, rich tone that it gives my voice and how versatile it is. I mean, you can use it for pretty much anything on stage, recording instruments, recording voice. It's just this awesome workhorse microphone. Next up is my USB audio interface. For those of you who don't know what a USB audio interface is, it allows you to connect kind of any number of different instruments or microphones into basically what's a box that then connects to your computer. So the signals from a microphone or from an electric guitar or something like that get passed into the box, and then they get turned into digital signals that go into your various different musical software or recording software. So, the interface paired with some good recording software, you basically got a good core of a home studio. So I use a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. Retails for about $280. It's got two multi-jacks that can handle a 1/4 inch and XLR inputs. It's got 48 volts phantom power, so if you're using a condenser microphone, it's good for that. It's also got an awesome signal processor that handles noise cancellation really beautifully, and it's got nice low latency for MIDI recording and playback. I absolutely love that thing. For guitar, I have an Ibanez RG570. That's my mainstay electric guitar. I've got a couple of acoustic guitars as well, but I mostly use electric. It's blue and sparkly, and I like sparkles. For MIDI, I have an M Audio Pro Keys Sono 61. It's a pretty straightforward MIDI interface keyboard. It's the workhorse of my music production. I do practically everything with that thing. I love it so much. I might go with something a little bit more complicated in the future, but with more dials and knobs and pads and things like that on it. But for right now, it perfectly suits what I need it for. So my computer is an Intel i7 4770. It's 3.4 gigs. I haven't overclocked it or anything like that. I'm not really into that kind of stuff. It's got 24 gigs of RAM. I've got a GeForce 450, I believe it is, video card, a Logitech G500 gaming mouse, and a SteelSeries mechanical keyboard. I also have, just a standard boom mic stand. Allows me to kind of tilt the mic in different ways that I could record it for guitar, I could record my voice with it, and then I've got that paired with a metal pop filter, which just helps keep the plosives down. Plosives are basically when you make P or K or T sounds. And last but certainly not least are my headphones. They're Sennheiser HD 558s, and they're the best headphones I've ever used. They're super comfortable, beautiful sound, nice wide sound stage. Can't recommend them enough. So look in the description for the details of the components I just listed. I've probably missed a couple of things, but that's the gist of my setup anyways. Okay, next question. Sweetie Man Jr. again asks, how do you prepare? I usually prepare by reading over a story at least once from start to finish. Sometimes I'll narrate kind of softly to myself while I'm reading it. Other times I'll just kind of internalize everything and let it sit for a little while before I actually start recording. I really like to try to put myself in the character's shoes, so identifying where they're coming from emotionally requires kind of reading first and then thinking about it. Other than that, I drink water. I really like to drink coffee before I start narrating. It kind of opens up my throat. And I find things sound a little smoother that way. And yeah. Okay, he also asks, how do you edit? I use a DAW, a DAW, which is also known as a digital audio workstation. It's a piece of software called Cocos Reaper. Reaper is a lot like Cubase or Pro Tools or Logic Pro. It's not quite as user-friendly as those, but it's way cheaper and just as powerful. Some people like to use like Audacity. I don't like Audacity at all when it comes to editing. Why? Well, because it's not an editor. It's an audio editor for sure, and you can, edit individual audio files with it, and for that purpose, it's a fine tool. But for any kind of serious editing, you need a non-linear editor or a DAW. Example, Jeff the Killer, the production I worked on for Chilling Tales, was something in the order of like 61, I think, tracks deep with like music and sound effects and ambient sounds and narrators and characters and everything. When you have to have all that stuff happening simultaneously and crossfading and panning directions and adding effects and things like that, you just can't pull that kind of stuff off with Audacity. You need a proper piece of software. Sweetie Man Jr. also asks, how do you choose music? Most of the time I actually compose the music myself. That way I know I can kind of, nail the tone that I'm going for. It's also a great way to, practice and learn new things musically, which is always fun. On occasion, I find, a royalty-free piece of music from any number of free audio websites, but when I can, which most of the time, I tend to prefer to compose my own stuff. Okay, last question from Sweetie Man. You asked a lot of questions. Thank you for that. Do you ever improvise on the spot, or do you stick to the script? I stick, I'd say 98% of the time to the script. If I do improvise, it's only to add in, a little quirk like a stutter or like an okay or something like that. I don't like to editorialize the stories I read. I really want them to speak for themselves as the author intended them to be read. Thanks for that. Klaus asks, really curious about your work routine. What stuff do you write down and plan beforehand? How do you manage all that beside your everyday life, and how much time that takes? Yes, the work routine. Okay, well, for the most part, I keep everything in my head. I know that's not really the ideal way of managing your life, so I've gotten a little bit better at writing things down, you know, on my Google Drive account or in Google Calendar or Outlook or whatever. For my Chilling Tales for Dark Nights work, we have a collaboration portal website that allows us to all work together in one place and keep things organized. So that side of my life is much better organized than it ever used to be, and it's certainly better organized than my own channel. So how do I manage, you know, being an executive producer for Chilling Tales, running my own channel, and living my everyday life? Well, that's simple. You just don't sleep. Seriously though, in all honesty, I probably get like on average 5, maybe 6 hours of sleep a night. I get home, do dinner, hang out for a bit, and then I get to work from anywhere probably around 8 p.m. to what could be 2 a.m. And it's probably slowly killing me. If I could, I'd, you know, just do this as my full-time job, but since I'm not really making any money doing this, I have to work a full-time job, and this is relegated to a hobby, which I'm happy with, but it does get kind of exhausting from time to time. He also asks, I'd also like to know what you would recommend from your own gear. In all honesty, I would happily recommend any and all of my own gear. I use it because it's reliable, it's great at what it does, you know, it's not the cheapest stuff in the world, but it's tried and true and produces good results. All right, Klaus also asks, how are you going to market yourself, broaden your audience? What are your plans for the future? Well, all I can really manage on the marketing and audience side is to sneak into as many other people's productions as I can and get wider exposure that way. You know, I've signed up for practically every social media outlet I possibly can. So I'm trying to get out there on Tumblr and Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. And that is helping a little bit. Maybe some of you have found me that way, I'm not sure. Chilling Tales definitely helps for sure. I mean, most of you probably have come from there. You might have seen that I'm actually really active in the comments sections of the stories that I work on. You know, that kind of helps get eyes on my channel and helps me interact with fans. And I kind of like that because it helps me form kind of a close bond with my audience, which I really enjoy. I don't really have a budget for marketing at all, so all I can really do is try to optimize my content for search engines and pound the pavement, really. Just kind of get annoyingly in everybody's face. My plans for the future. I want to grow my roster of scary stories, definitely, but I'd also like to expand into other genres of fiction, like Western, noir, or sci-fi. I actually do have a long gestating sci-fi production that I've been working on, but it's been kind of slow to get off the ground because of the number of other characters that are in it that I've been kind of slowly getting people to voice. I've debated even stretching into some other stuff. It might be fun to do some stuff like fanfic or dramatic readings of comments, you know, something for a laugh. This might sound kind of dumb or like a bad idea, you know, you tell me. I've also toyed with narrating erotic fiction. I have a few friends who are actually quite good writers of erotica. Like, it's not cheesy stuff, it's not over-the-top stuff, it's, you know, really good characters who happen to be in sexy situations. I don't know, I'm on the fence about that. I'll try pretty much anything at least once, but, you know, if it's stupid, if it doesn't work, I'm not, you know, maybe I'll try it once and we'll kind of see how that goes, and I'll make a decision after that. Other than that, I'll keep posting music when the mood strikes me, so I guess you can look forward to that too. That's my big plans for the future. Okay, so Green Animator asks, are you open for collaborations? Yes, all the time. The only issue I have is finding the time for them, but other than that, I'm always totally game for collaborating. Okay, I've got a few questions from Katie here. Have you been involved with Chilling Tales since its conception? No, I joined Chilling Tales somewhere around the second half of its first year. I came on board in October of last year, I think it was. How long have you been doing the voice acting side of things? Professionally, never. But I've always done, you know, funny voices and impressions and talked to myself since I was a kid. All my, you know, quote unquote acting experience comes from watching TV and movies, which I do a lot, and, you know, listening to audiobooks, pretty much. Which actors, film, screen, voiceover, whatever, do you most admire? One of the actors I admire the most is Viggo Mortensen. Not only did he play Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings, but he's like this true Renaissance man. He's a writer, a poet, a singer, songwriter. He's an artist, a photographer, an actor, and like probably 50 other things. He's probably some amazing chef or something too. He's like this living embodiment of like creativity and artistry. And I think that's awesome. I have so much respect for that dude. There's lots of other actors I like too. I really like Michael Emerson from Lost and Person of Interest. He's just an amazing actor. As far as voice actors go, I really like Nolan North, who starred in pretty much every video game ever made. He's just got this awesome, versatile voice, and he's really good at what he does. I also really like the voice work that John Lithgow has done. He's done quite a bit of voice work in the past, as well as acting, and he's great at both. He's one of those just amazing actors that we're very lucky to have in the world. But my voice crush, that's easy. Rose Leslie. Ygritte from Game of Thrones. She's got this amazing, sexy as hell, raspy voice and this gorgeous accent that goes along with it. Oh man, I like her a lot. Katie also asks, who are your favorite writers? That's easy. Tolkien. No, I'm just kidding. I'm a big Tolkien nerd, so I really love Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and The Silmarillion. He's an amazing writer. He's kind of the grandfather of fantasy. There's not enough nice things I can say about Tolkien. I love Douglas Adams. He pretty much everything he's ever written is my favorite thing ever. I grew up reading the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy quintology, sextology. I don't know how many books it is. I think it's 5 books. Trilogy in 5 parts, right? So really funny humor, awesome, dry, British wit. I love that guy. Stephen King, of course. On the creepypasta side of things, my 2 favorites are Matt Demarsky and Michael Whitehouse, easily. Katie also asks, which of the creepypastas you've done, in your opinion, is the scariest? That's a good question. I think probably A Knock on the Window. I really like that one. It's probably the scariest that I've done. Is it the scariest creepypasta? No, but I liked. It was fun, kind of ramping up the tension on that one. It's got a good twist ending and stuff. So I think that's probably it for me. She also asks, do you prefer acting as an unhinged character or an average Joe? Good question. I think unhinged, probably. But my favorite type of unhinged character is one who seems like the average Joe, but like bubbling under the surface is this evil that could lash out at any moment. Okay, last question from Katie. She asks, if you could narrate any full-length book, what would be your first choice? Toss up between Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Like I said, I'm a huge Tolkien nerd. Okay, Black Clarke Narration asks, have you ever eaten dirt as a kid? Yes. What happens if your dog barks when you record? I run over to her, I raise my hand, and then I give her a big belly rub. What's for dinner? Tacos. So I got a anonymous Tumblr question. Have you done anything you regret? If so, what was it? Give us details. Wow, okay. Interesting question. Well, there was a friend I had in elementary school. We lived near each other and we spent lots of time together, and he was easily one of my best friends. When we got a little older, I decided to have a party and invite people over to my house. Well, it being elementary school and me being, 10 or 11, people were all about inviting the popular kids and keeping out all the kind of undesirables. I didn't really subscribe to that belief because I wasn't a snob, but peer pressure's a huge bitch at that age. And, people didn't want my friend to be invited. And to this day, I don't know why I caved, but I did. And he was pretty upset, and he felt pretty betrayed. And he had every right to be. We eventually, sorted through it together and remained friends, but I've always regretted doing that to him. And I made a point of never letting what other people think stand in the way of what I know is right. Thanks for that. That was a good question. Okay, so Sarah Nawab. Again, sorry, Sarah, if I pronounced your name wrong. How do you go about choosing which stories to narrate? You make excellent choices. Thank you, Sarah. Hopefully I answered that first one well enough earlier. She also asks, just because I used to live there, where in Canada are you from? I live in the lovely city of Hamilton, Ontario. Next up, Bianca Mendez asks, what do you look like? I'm curious. Hello. Okay, last question, and I'm gonna totally butcher your username. I have no idea how to pronounce it. Niobe Snuppa? Niobe Snoopa? Sorry. Asks, how old are you? I am 33 years old. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for your really nice questions. A lot of you asked really great questions. I appreciate the feedback. I'm glad I didn't embarrass myself with asking for feedback and not getting any, so you guys rule. And once again, thank you for everybody for, getting me to this point. 300 subscribers is probably not a huge milestone by most people's standards, but for me, it's a big deal. I worked my butt off to get to this point, and I'm just really thankful for everything. I intend to do this as long as I possibly can, and I just want to thank you all one more time, profusely, for listening to me, for enjoying what I do, and I hope to see you again at 400 subscribers. Thanks again, guys. Cheers.